Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for making some time for yoga today. Today's class will be a little different. We're going to practice a type of yoga that's a little bit more soothing, a little more restorative. I've had a migraine for the past couple days, so I'm quite excited to really lean into this more relaxing, more internally focused type of practice. And I think, especially with it being the end of January, many of us have set New Year's resolutions for ourselves. We may or may not have achieved those resolutions, but I think a lot of us forget that it's not just about discipline. Creating space for rest and relaxation is imperative to make sure that any new change in routine or new activity is sustainable. And I love that yoga really does seem to always strive to find that perfect balance between lots of effort and lots of ease. So, for today's practice, I definitely recommend having some water, tea, another beverage close by. This is a really good one to have some props. You definitely don't need any of the specific yoga props. I have a regular blanket or towel, will work wonders. You might even want two, one blanket to snuggle up with and one to serve as padding. Having a mat or something cushy is super helpful for this. And then I've got a yoga bolster here, but truly a regular pillow or cushion from your bed or from your couch will be just as good. So feel free to take some time to secure these items if you don't have them handy. I should mention a yoga block works just as well too, but definitely don't feel the need to purchase a yoga block if you don't already have one. So to begin, it is helpful if the long edge of your mat is facing towards your screen. And if we all turn such that our right arm is facing towards the screen, that can help a little bit with the cues. But again, if it doesn't work for your space, no big deal. We'll still be able to follow along with voice. So make sure your props are nearby, specifically that you've got a pillow or blanket within reaching distance of your mat. Put these over here. All right, we're going to start from our backs. Hard to imagine a more restful position. And I invite you to take your time getting there, savoring the journey just as much as the destination. Allow your legs to make contact with the mat. Snuggle your shoulder blades underneath your chest and down from your ears. Let your feet flop out to the sides, palms facing up to the ceiling, allowing the fingers to naturally curve in. Let's turn our attention inwards. Regardless of what chaos or confusion is happening on the outside, let's just take stock without judgment about what's happening inside of us. Imagine your breath is like a blanket washing over you, creating a bit of a barrier, a cocoon between our inner selves and the outside world. You're invited to notice the breath without changing it, accepting wherever your body is at, and trusting that what's happening naturally right now is just as it should be. You may notice as you turn your attention inwards, the breath might slow ever so slightly. Perhaps the inhalations and exhalations become a little longer and a little smoother. Invite some movement into your body, ever so slightly wiggling the toes, just the toes, feeling how that tiny movement translates all the way up through your feet, through your legs, into the hips. And maybe you can feel those little micro movements, those reverberations, all the way up your spine and traveling down your arms. Turn the toe wiggles into something a little bigger by rotating the ankles and really massaging the heels into the mat. Notice the speed that you're moving your ankles and see if you can go half as fast or twice as slow. I like that characterization because it really shows that sometimes going slowly, it does take attention and does take work. But what a lovely way to focus our attention. Going slowly invites us to attend to our bodies, to tune into the sensations. Let's reverse the direction of our ankles, noticing how when your toes point away from you, you open up on the front of the legs. And when the toes make their way towards your nose, you're opening up on the back. Maybe experiencing a bit of a massage in the calves and the most subtle hamstring and quad stretch in the world. Now that we focused on our lower half, let's start to rotate our wrists in time with our ankles. Taking a minute to check in and make sure we haven't sped up too much. Let's reverse the direction if we haven't already. Sometimes it's hard to focus on going slowly. If that's the case for you, imagine the movements being smooth like melted butter. Melted vegan butter, if you prefer. But focus on making the movements smooth can really turn our attention to the process and sometimes naturally slow us down. Great. From here, let's start to reach through the palms, reaching towards the legs, and then use that energy to send the arms up and overhead. Just before they touch the ground, bend through the elbows and send the palms back towards the legs. You can look at this screen if you'd like to see this movement. I invite you to pause your ankle rotations and stillness so we can really focus on mobilizing the upper body, at least for these first few rotations. You can imagine perhaps that you're a large, graceful bird taking long, slow strokes through the sky, joining the action to your breath wherever possible. Once this starts to feel more natural, more routine, I invite you to circle your ankles, trying to circle the ankles at the same speed at which you're circling your arms. Noticing if there is a tendency to speed up in either joint. Imagining slow movements as lubricating the joints, making them soft, supple, ready to move. The next time your palms are towards your feet, let's pause here. And now let's circle the arms up overhead by our sides and then up above the body. So essentially drawing circles in the opposite way from what you did before. Really and truly, it's okay to get a little funky here. If you want to make your own arm circles, maybe explore some organic movement asymmetrically. Do whatever it takes to listen to your body and simply notice what's happening. The next time your arms are up overhead, let's pause here. Let's pause those ankle circles if they were wiggling around. Inhale to lengthen through the body from tips of the toes to tips of the fingers, and then land gently and slowly on the exhale. Turn your attention to your left heel and start to drag that left heel in closer to the bum by bending the knee. Once you stop with your knee bent, left foot flat on the mat, press through that left foot to rotate ever so luxuriously onto your right side. Stack your knees with a little bit of a bend. Use your left palm to rest in front of the ground or mat. And start to increase and decrease the weight in that left palm to really roll through that right side of the body. If you'd like, you can extend your legs a little bit more to get a little bit more of a roll sensation through the legs. Or if that feels a bit unstable, bend the knees in a bit closer to the chest. Find what works well for you. Find what your body's craving. Trust that whatever you choose is the right choice. There's no difference in benefit, really, depending on how close or far your feet are from the body. So just experiment and welcome your findings. If there's one place that feels particularly good, or maybe particularly sticky, that just needs a bit of extra attention, feel free to hang out there. Do little micro movements right in that spot. Notice if there's any sensation of opening the shoulders. You've got your head resting on your right arm as a pillow. Notice how that right shoulder feels. Maybe you're getting a bit of a massage through that right hip. Maybe a bit through that right leg and foot. Wherever you're at, let's pause in a neutral position with the hips stacked. Let's turn our attention to that top left foot and drag the heel back behind us, using that connection from that left heel to the right shoulder to roll onto our backs, arms rolling up overhead. Take a second to notice how you feel. Notice if there's any different sensation or feeling of length between the two sides. From here, turn your attention to your right heel. Drag that right heel in towards the bum until it finds a spot where your pelvis feels nice and supported with the foot flat on the mat and knee bent. Gently increase the weight by pressing through that right foot and turn onto the left side of our bodies, allowing the feet to stack, knees bent to whatever mat you'd like, right palm in front of the face. Let's repeat the same actions as before, increasing and decreasing the weight in that right palm to get a bit of a massage, a bit of awakening, and that left lateral line of the body. Notice what's happening with your breath and see if you can unify the breath and the movement, whatever that means to you. Eventually, let's pause in a neutral position with our hips stacked, shoulders stacked, and then turn our attention to our right foot, lengthen through that right foot, and then kick the heel gently behind us, feeling that connection from the right foot all the way to the left shoulder, and use that to roll onto our backs. Take a minute to recenter yourself so that you feel stable and supported. On your next inhale, use the air to inflate your body, reaching the fingertips away from the toes, active in all directions. And then melt into the mat on your exhale. From here, let's start to wiggle our shoulders and palms towards the right side of the mat. Now we can wiggle our heels towards the right side of the mat so that we're resting in a bit of a banana position here, a little bit of a supine crescent. Option to hang out here. And if during your breath, especially your inhales, you feel that opening, that lengthening on the left side of your body, pause here. You're perfect. You're wonderful. No need to do anything else. If that sensation is really subtle or you're looking to explore something different, perhaps take your right palm and grab onto your left wrist, giving it a gentle, gentle, loving pull to further increase the sensation on the left side of the body. And or cross your left foot over your right. Return to your breath. If you've got your wrist held and your legs crossed, turn your attention. If you feel your breath catching anywhere, just come out of the curve a little bit or maybe release. We'll pause here for a few breaths. Imagining that the inhale is creating more length on the left side of that body every time. And the exhale allows you to melt a little bit deeper into the mat. See if you can find a sensation of opening that's maybe 75% of your maximum. You don't want to be in our maximum curve because we'll be here for a while and it will start to get uncomfortable. We actually create more progress and lengthen our muscles when they're lengthening but not in pain. As soon as there's pain or too much tension, the muscles tighten up. It's really counterproductive. So tune into the body and have the courage to be honest about what feels good today. Release your left wrist if you were holding it. Uncross the legs if they were crossed. And start to wiggle the shoulders and wiggle the feet back into alignment. Pause here for a moment. Noticing any difference in the sensation between the left and right side of the body. I invite you to lengthen through the arms, circle them up overhead, and then bring the hands down to your rib cage, right at the widest part, right at the diaphragm. Take a deep breath and notice if there's ever so slightly a little bit more movement or ease or space on one side compared to the other. You might find it feels as though the left side of your body is a little bit more free, a little bit more mobile. And it's okay if you don't, that's not the goal at all. It's just nice to check in and see what the effects are of our body. Lengthen the palms towards the legs, then circle the arms up overhead, allowing them to land. From here, let's wiggle the shoulders and palms over to the left, wiggle the feet over to the left so that we find ourselves in this restful Zen banana position. You can imagine yourself to be the softest, most relaxed banana in the world. One of the bananas that's been left on the counter for too long is turning to mush. That's the goal. So, invitation to stay here if you're feeling a great sensation of lengthening on the right side. Option to extend a little longer through that right arm and grasp the right wrist with the left hand. Very gently, just like you'd grab a child's wrist to direct them somewhere. Not too firm, just some gentle guidance. Cross the right ankle over the left as an option. If this isn't feeling right, feel free to readjust. Now let's turn our attention to the breath. At the surface level, this posture doesn't look like we're moving at all. But if you allow the breath to move you, it actually creates a lot of space throughout the right side of the body. Sink into this position. This will be our home for a little while. You can change the location where your attention is directed. Maybe as you start to inhale, you imagine yourself feeling up from the bottom of your feet, throughout the right leg, right side of body, all the way up through that right arm. And then as you exhale, imagine yourself emptying from the right fingertips to the arm, to the side body, to the leg, to the toes. Imagine that the breath isn't something that you're doing, but is something that is happening to you. Uncross the ankles if they're crossed. Release the right wrist if it was grasped. And let's wiggle the arms and legs back into alignment. From here, let's drag one of our ankles, doesn't matter which one, close into the bum, and then pause with the feet flat on the floor, knee bent. Drag the other ankle, really luxuriously savoring the journey, and pausing with the knees bent, feet flat on the floor. Take a minute to press through the feet. Experiment with moving the feet closer to the bum and farther away from the bum, flattening the low back on the mat, maybe bouncing your toes up a little bit even, finding a space where you feel maximally supported and mobile in that low back. This is a great opportunity to make sure your props, your little blanket or cushions are close by. And now, turn your attention to the feet. Press through the feet so you feel the low back making contact with the mat. And ever so slowly and lovingly raise the hips off the mat as we allow the arms to arc overhead and then land palms down beside the hips. Pause here. On your next exhale, lower the hips vertebrae by vertebrae and allow the arms to circle back up overhead. Repeat this action a few times, really seeing how slowly you can go, how much you can enjoy the journey rather than just rushing to get to the destination. Listen for the change. The next time your hips are into the air, pause there. Take either your rolled up blanket or cushion and place it right underneath your hips, right underneath the sacrum, and allow your sacrum to land. Now, take a minute here to be honest with how it feels. If you feel any pinching in your low back, experimenting with moving the cushion a little bit farther away from you, or maybe a little bit closer towards your head, do those little micro movements until you find a place where you feel maximally supported. Maybe you need a little bit more cushioning, so you take a pillow or blanket on top of your cushion. Experiment with different heights. If you've got a yoga block, experiment with 3 different heights available. Try to explore with curiosity rather than any expectation. You can gently tick-tock your knees ever so slightly from side to side, literally just like 5 or 10 degrees in each direction to feel a little opening throughout your pelvis, a little bit of movement throughout those SI joints and low back. Option to stay here. You can have your palms flat on the floor beside you, or maybe walk out with your toes a little bit to bring your feet a little farther away from the body. See how that feels in the back. If it's feeling really good, option to go a little further. If there's any pinching or strain in the back, just wiggle the toes back, drag the heels in by activating the core. Move back and forth a little bit, taking the time to find your perfect position. And maybe, just maybe, you do want to try extending your legs. See how that feels. It's definitely not the goal at all. There's no extra benefits. This is just a nice position to really open up our hip flexors, those big muscles that go over our pelvis and connect to our legs. These are the ones that are crunched up all day when we're sitting away typing at a desk. So giving them the opportunity to open up to any degree is just awesome. We'll rest here for a bit. Taking the opportunity to readjust at any point if you feel anything that's a bit pinchy, not quite right for your body. Feel free to revise. You can allow the palms to float up towards the sky beside you, or maybe have them resting flat on the mat. Slightly changes the sensation in the upper back. Experiment with which one your body's craving. Find palms down, feels a little bit more grounded. Palms up, opens the chest very nicely in that upper back. Turn to the breath. Make sure we're not crunching your chins too close towards your chest, so that the breath is free and smooth and unimpeded. Start to wiggle your toes and fingers. If your palms are facing up, turn them so they're making full contact with the mat or earth. If If your legs are out, drag one heel in closer to the bum. Drag the other heel in closer to the bum. Wiggle your feet to find a position where they feel like they're in full contact with the mat. When you're ready, catch a wave of your inhale and use that to raise your hips ever so slightly. Remove your prop from underneath you and then lower the vertebrae, literally one at a time. You can do it. It's some work for the core, but it can be done. As you slowly, diligently land the hips on the mat. Awesome. Once you arrive, bring one knee into the chest, bring the next knee into the chest. Make sure that they're far enough apart such that your belly can take deep breaths right in between them. And let's rock back and forth, feeling that lovely sensation of opening and release, especially in the low back, but also traveling all the way down to our tailbone, up through our upper back between the shoulder blades, and maybe even into the neck as we roll our head from side to side. Option at any point to stay over on one side if it feels really good, or maybe pause in the middle for stillness. Allowing the breath to be the only thing that's moving your body. No need to really crunch those knees into the chest. You can let them go a little bit. Maybe grab behind the thighs if that feels a little bit more spacious. Allow the shoulders to melt back towards the mat. Experiment to find your perfect or close to perfect position here. Whatever feels maximally supportive. We'll be here for another minute. Notice if there's any tension in the neck or shoulders. Allow them to melt towards the mat. Unclench the jaw, unfurl the brow. Just let everything be as relaxed and soft as your body is naturally craving. From here, let's turn our attention to our right heel and extend out through that right heel, focusing on length, pausing with the right heel, hovering an inch or two off the mat, feeling that activation of the core. Option to maybe raise the shoulders and nose ever so slightly towards that left knee. Turning the attention to the breath, welcoming that little bit of fire happening in the core. And then gently imagining like you can't wait or you don't want to let go of this pose. Lower the heel and the head back towards the mat. So our right leg is extended, flat on the mat. Shoulders and neck are on the mat. And we're gently hugging that left knee in towards our chest. Let's get loose in the fingers, allow the palms to slide down the leg, and then let's press that left foot into the mat, knee bent. From here, we're going to turn our attention to our right heel, raise it off the mat a few inches, and then raise that right leg into the air, allowing the knee to bend naturally once you get near a top or vertical position. We'll be here for 1 second or so, and then bend into that right knee. Cross the right ankle over top of the left thigh, coming to rest in a figure four position. Now, this might feel really intense in the hips. If so, walk out that left foot a little bit and see if that feels a little bit better, a little bit more spacious. Maybe you're not feeling much sensation here. If so, drag in that left heel a little bit. And if this is still really not doing much for you, option to bring that left foot in towards the chest, maybe thread the arms through the legs and gently grasp behind the left thigh. You can pause here. You can use your right elbow to press a little bit onto that right knee to create some extra sensation of release or spaciousness in that outer right hip. Wherever you're at, trust that it's the right position for your body. As long as you're feeling something, some subtle sensation in that right hip, you're doing it properly. We're not going to be crunching up our knees to our chest. That will be really rough on our hamstrings. We'll get a lot more progress by allowing for gentle relaxation that we can lean into. Option to either hang out here, using the breath to smooth over any tension developing that right hip, or gently rock side to side, noticing how that changes the sensation of opening throughout that right hip. Notice any thoughts that have come to your mind and let go of anything that's not serving you. Any expectations about what our body should be doing or should look like, no, that stuff's probably not helping. Let it go. Option to start to rotate the right ankle, just like we did at the beginning of our practice. Noticing how these subtle movements can alter the sensation of opening in that right hip. Wherever you're at, if that left foot is lifted, allow it to come into contact with the mat. Let's send our right heel up into the air and then plant it down on the mat. Feet are planted, knees bent. Let's bring both knees into the chest and a little gentle rock and roll side to side. From here, let's turn our attention to our left heel. Let's press out through the left heel, either bringing it to the mat or hovering it a couple inches above. Hanging out here, feeling that activation in that left hip flexor and core. Option to maybe raise the neck and shoulders off the mat, bringing the knee towards the nose. Feeling that activation in the core. Maybe giving a little smile here, noticing how even just changing your face can sometimes change what it feels like to be in these more activating poses. Wherever you're at, imagining like you just can't let go of this pose. slowly bring your head and heel down towards the mat. Pause here. Right knee in towards the chest. Left leg flat on the floor. Returning to the breath. Allow your palms to melt down your leg. And now plant your right foot on the mat, knee bent. Lengthen through that left heel, rise it up into the air, allowing the knee to bend naturally as you start to feel that tightening in the hamstrings. Now bend the left knee, put the left ankle on top of the right thigh, and now experiment and see where you can get a lovely sensation of opening in that outer right hip without creating too much tension. Again, drag your heel back and forth, wiggle out those toes. Maybe, if it feels good to do so, raise that right foot off the mat, reach through the legs and grasp behind that right thigh, maybe using the left elbow to prop up against the left knee. Option to pause in stillness or gently rock side to side, being very cautious and conscious of the sensation in that right hip. Again, we'll be here for a while, so find a spot that allows you to be at maybe 75%, even 50% of your maximal stretch. Use your breath to smooth over any wrinkles of tension that develop in that left hip. Imagine sending your breath to massage out that left glute. Option to draw some circles with the left ankle, noticing how it changes the sensation in that left hip. Draw circles in the other direction, taking stock of how it might feel a little different. Allow yourself to be surprised and notice if maybe one side or one hip has very different needs than the other. It's very common. Doesn't suggest anything is abnormal. Just meet your body, meet each individual hip where it's at. Let's allow that right foot to head towards the mat if it's not already there. Uncross the top leg so that our feet are flat, knees are bent. From here, allow the arms to rise up overhead and now tick-tock the legs ever so gently from side to side. Imagine from a 1 o'clock to 11 o'clock position. You can increase these tiny windshield wipers, going from side to side, maybe noticing a bit of a massage in the hips. And the next time your knees go towards the right side or towards your computer screen, allow the knees to carry you all the way over onto your right side, left palm flat on the floor in front of you. We spend a lot of time nice and low on the ground. You're going to prepare to rise a little bit, but take your time getting there. Tag some weight into that left palm. Rise on up into a seated position facing the long edge of your mat. You can allow your eyes to close if it feels safe to do so. From here, do some gentle circles with the neck, creating a sensation of release and spaciousness throughout the spine. Let's reverse the direction if we haven't already. You can pause in the middle for stillness. You can begin to blink your eyes open. Believe it or not, that's been 50 minutes. Option to bring your palms to your chest, thumbs to the sternum, lifting the heart ever so slightly. I really hope everyone's feeling as rooted and grounded as I am right now. It's experiencing a bit of extra space in both the body and mind. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. Have a lovely day and namaste.